Welcome to another episode of Message from Mom, where we're busting the myth that mothers-in-law aren't necessarily monsters-in-law. And I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts who happen to be my daughters-in-law. And to the left of me is Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and I'm married to Beth's oldest son, Alex.
And to the right of me is Chelsea.
Hi, I'm Chelsea, and I'm married to Beth's middle son, Andrew.
We have a great topic today for our Message from Mom podcast. And then we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into women's friendships. And I think it'll be a very lively conversation. So I'm looking forward to that. But before we dive in, let's raise our glasses in a toast because we know that you don't need to be a blood relative to love your relative. So
Cheers.
thanks for another episode, ladies. Okay. So now I'm going to give you my Message from Mom take on women's friendships. And I really do think that community is very, very important. And it truly does take a village. To quote Hillary Clinton, takes a village to not only raise your children, but just to have that support system and that ecosystem in place. And I think women and women's friendship is a big part of that. And I had a great marriage for 35 years. But I also know that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. And I think that female friendships are so important in our lives. And I just look at my mom because my mom was honestly one of my first best friends out there. I mean, even though we hated each other at times, especially during my teens, I didn't really hate her after my teenage years. I can't remember. I can remember being like really mad at her a couple of times, but not. I do remember like hating her when I was a teenager. But anyway, but we were always, she was just always a go-to source for me. And she was not only my mom, but she was my cheerleader and a really good friend. And so it just really set up my expectations of friendships. And now that I have both of you in my lives, I honestly look to you as friends as well as my daughters-in-law. And it's really been lovely, to cultivate that and to see that grow. And I'm looking forward to to all the years to come that we have that in place. But I did just want to share this one statistic, which really does hone in on how important friendships are and female friendships. So, um, this is, and oh gosh, now I can't remember the article that I'll try to find the source from this article, but because I just took this quote directly from that. But it says that women with early stage breast cancer were 4 times more likely to die from cancer if they didn't have very many friends. And those with a larger group of friends with early stage breast cancer had a much better survival rate. So I found that very interesting and extraordinary in how important it really is to have friends in our lives. And also too, in today's society, because when I was like looking at my friend group, I mean, they're kind of divided into buckets. So I have, friends that live far away. That we were friends like years ago, but we've retained that friendship. I have friends that are also far away, but that I've met, through work, through influencing and blogging, but we are able to, to maintain that friendship and see each other, once a year or whatnot. And they also, we have a starting point because we're both working in the same industry and not very many people understand that industry. So that's great. And then I also have friends that live here in town.
Yeah.
So I think it's maybe a little bit easier nowadays to keep your friendships alive because we can be in constant communication, so whether that's, and sometimes I'll get a comment, from my friend Lori that lives in Texas, on one of my social media channels,
Yeah.
or
More
you know,
ways to communicate. Yeah.
or a dear friend of mine that lives in town, mostly, we communicate through text, and I mean, we get to see each other in person, but, but I'll see her over on social media too. She'll give me a DM over on Instagram or things like that. So I just think that's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
That we have these built-in avenues where we can stay a little bit more in touch with our friends.
Yeah.
But what I love about female friendships is, and I can remember Mac, my late husband, coming in, like my mom was in for a visit, and an hour later he would come and hey, what have you guys been talking about? And we would be like, nothing, everything, anything. I mean, that's usually how
Yeah.
female conversations go. It's just this ebb and flow. You could
Mhm.
be talking about shoes one minute and then, talking about maybe the latest restaurant that we were at,
Mhm.
or maybe it's something serious.
Yeah.
And, like to do with my, with Mac, my relationship, or my children, or whatever it is. But I just think that it's really wonderful that women, we just have that ability to just tap into each other, and we can tap into our deepest darkest secrets, and we can just or as I said, talk about just fluffy things. So
Yeah.
anyway, we're going to kick it off, and we're going to take that deep dive into women's friendships. And Kelly, I'm
Mhm.
just going to, and actually, I mean, both of you can answer this, and I can answer this too, but do you have a lot of female friends?
No, I don't.
No.
No.
So why or why
Right
not?
off the
Why
bat,
why
no.
or why not? So Kelly's like, no, no, I
I
do
do
not.
not. I do
So
not.
why or why not?
Um,
It's complex, isn't it?
yeah, it is. It's really complex. And I think part of it is I just generally have a, a antisocial kind of instinct, I guess. So I've never had very many friends of any sex.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think the reason probably because the reason why I have only just like one or two female friends is because it's taken me a long time to cultivate the type of friendship where I would feel like someone is like my best friend or something like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't tend to, I haven't actually stayed in one place long enough to really be in the same city to kind of work on cultivating a
Mm-hmm.
female friendship that I would consider a go to friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like my best friend Callie. I would consider my sister a friend because she's my sister, but also we have a lot of shared memories and things. It's nice to kind of have that type
Mm-hmm.
of female friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would consider you guys female
Mm-hmm.
friends. So,
Mhm.
I
so
know.
there's that.
It's really nice. Yeah. So your
So
your
maybe
fr-
I had
your
more than I
that's
thought.
right. Your friend group is expanding, Kelly,
Yeah.
whether you wanted it to or not.
Yeah.
But yes, it has been really fun to see our relationship grow. And
Hmm.
I really have the podcast to thank, because we have built in time
Yeah.
every third week, which is really
It
nice.
Mhm.
I
is
mean, I
nice.
I I
Yeah.
actually look
I
forward
think
to
we
it.
probably talk
Uh-huh.
about a lot more things in
Mhm.
this podcast organically than we
Yes.
would organically in real life.
It's
Mhm.
Right?
For
definitely,
sure.
I think it's
Yeah.
definitely strengthened our relationship. And so I'm going to throw it out to the podcast community. Take this podcast as a starting point, and take it to your girlfriend,
Mhm.
and
Hmm.
and talk about it. Hey, let's talk about women's friendship. Or we recently just discussed trad wives or desert island. What would be your favorite foods to bring to the desert island? But use this as a launching pad,
Hmm.
as
Mhm.
or a catalyst, for conversation, because
Yeah.
For
I mean,
sure.
it truly has been in our lives, and I've really have so appreciated it. But so, Chelsea, how about you? Do you have a lot of female friends?
Um, I would say yes and no. I don't have a lot of close female friends, but I would say that I do, kind of like Kelly was saying when she started, well, I have
Mhm.
this person, I have this person.
Uh-huh.
I do have a good group of female friends
Mhm.
that, I could go and grab a coffee with or
Mhm.
grab lunch with.
Mhm.
But I would say as far as close friends,
Mhm.
it's a smaller
Mhm.
knit group.
So you have like an inner circle. I mean, I
Hmm.
always like to make the definition between my friends and acquaintances. So I think my acquaintances are so. I mean, I actually probably could go out to lunch with them, but I wouldn't bare my soul to them,
Right.
or share my
Right.
deepest
Yeah.
darkest secrets. And so yeah, so I always think of the inner circle,
Hmm.
and,
Yeah.
and then
For sure.
and then everyone else as well.
Yeah.
So do most of your friends live in town, and do they live in Atlanta, or do you have any long distance friends?
Most of my friends live in Atlanta, but I have one of my really good friends lives in Jacksonville, Florida.
Mhm.
Um, all of my friends that I made, there were like 4 of us in grad school when I went to NYU that were really close, and
Mhm.
none of them live in Atlanta.
Mhm.
So I think one's in San Francisco, one's in Mexico, one's in
Mhm.
Chicago. I mean, we're just like all over the
You're far
place.
flung. Mhm.
So I don't get to see them or talk to them that often, but
Mhm.
you know, we've
Yeah.
got most of my like friends that I hang out with are in Atlanta.
That's
Mhm.
nice. I don't have that at all,
Mhm.
actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm the only one
Yeah.
at this table really that is technically from
Yeah.
Atlanta.
I know,
So,
right?
True.
I guess
From
it makes the
Georgia.
most sense.
Mhm.
Well, it takes time. I mean, and I will just share this, having moved a number of times, I
Mhm.
always found my community, but it does take some time to tap
Yeah.
into it.
It does.
Some
Yeah.
cities can be easier or harder,
Well, especially as
depending.
you get older, for
Hmm.
sure. Takes
Definitely. But I
yeah.
will, I will share this. I'm 65 now, and I'm still, one of my goals is still to cultivate new friendships
Mhm.
and to look for women that are like-minded and that also want to cultivate new friendships. And I'll just share, I do have female friends. I can't say that I have like a lot. I've always been one of those that, as we just talked about it, I have a few very close friends and then more
Mhm.
acquaintances. But some live here in town. I'm very blessed
Mhm.
to have a really dear friend that lives here in town. Then also, I'm making some new friends at Pilates. So I've socialize with some of them. I mean, I see them regularly because I go to Pilates
Mhm.
like 4 days a week, and so that's really nice.
Yeah.
Because our friendship is built on we're obviously into health and exercise and all that, so that's our
Mhm.
Mhm.
our starting point. But I do have friends that live far away, and one is a dear dear friend of mine from my Houston days, so that was over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And we try to have a girls friend, we try to have a girls trip every
Mhm.
year.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so this year we get together early spring, and then this year it'll be late fall where we're going to have our girls trip, so I'm looking forward to that. But
Mhm.
I also love, it's not, I can't say that we talk every day,
Mhm.
but it's a nice pace. And
Yeah.
I always love to see
Yeah.
that text from her, or there
Right.
again, I've shared, like, I'll get a, DM, on my
Mhm.
social accounts, things like that. It's always really fun.
Yeah.
And then too, then as I shared earlier, women in the industry,
Mhm.
um, that I can talk business with,
Right.
and
Mhm.
but also have met them in person, and we've spent time together, and so we can talk about personal things too.
Mhm.
But I will encourage you, as you age, because it can be more challenging to develop friendships, but that's where
Yeah.
we just have to really be proactive. And that's why I, even at 65, am out there looking to cultivate those
Mhm.
friendships, because I know it's so important. It
Mhm.
just
For
really
sure.
is.
Yeah.
So Kelly, you shared, I think, earlier who your best friend is, or maybe you didn't name her by name.
I didn't,
Uh-huh.
but I've talked about her on this
Uh-huh.
podcast
You
before.
have.
My best friend Callie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's a very outgoing person and has a lot of friends. So I'm sure like I'm not her number one best friend, but since I have so few
Mm-hmm.
women in my life that aren't part of my family, she is definitely my best
Mm-hmm.
friend. We travel well together. We,
Mm-hmm.
have a great time doing anything. We can
Mm-hmm.
sit and watch TV together. We can go to live music together. We just have a great time.
Well,
Mhm.
So,
they say a telltale sign of a good friendship is being able to travel together.
mm-hmm,
So if you can
mm-hmm.
travel together, yes,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
that's a very good thing. That's a very good thing.
Definitely. Yeah.
So Chelsea, how about you? Who would you say is your best female friend?
My best female friend is my friend Noelle, and we've been friends since I guess I was maybe like 23,
Mm-hmm.
so a little over 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, we don't get to hang out as often. I saw her last night actually. But we don't get to hang out as often as I would like. I mean, we'll try to get dinner, at least like once or twice a month. And but she does live in the Atlanta area, but she's pretty much like a 40 or 45-minute drive from where we are. And in Atlanta there's traffic, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't always have that middle ground, but it's definitely when we get together, we always pick up right where we left off.
Yeah.
And there's never any awkwardness because we haven't talked in a while or anything like that. But she's just kind of the friend that she always has my back. I would always have her back.
Mhm.
She's just fun.
Mhm.
She's like a fun person to hang out with. Kind of like you said, when you would be in a room talking with your mom and
Yeah.
Mac would come in and go, "What are
Yeah.
you guys talking
Yeah.
about?"
Nothing.
Yeah.
Everything.
Me and Noelle, I mean, we we'll be dancing with random music. We're always like to keep things lighthearted. And I
Mhm.
think that our personalities are very similar, sometimes to a fault, because I don't think either of us are very emotional people. So, like,
Mhm.
like any time that I've ever seen Noelle cry, she's, 5 seconds later, like, I got it together.
Mhm.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, she
Yeah.
pulls it together.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Mhm.
she's definitely my best friend.
Mhm. Well, and I also just want to point out too, it's just like with your marriage or relationship. I mean, any relationship, you really do have to build in that time. You have to
Yeah.
cultivate it, and it really there is
Hmm.
a little bit amount of work
Hmm.
to it. And even though, but I loved how you shared that you may not have talked to Noelle for a while, and I bet you feel this way with Callie. I
Hmm.
feel this way about my friend Lori that lives in Houston.
Hmm.
We may not have spoken in months, and we could just pick up
Yeah.
as if I
Hmm.
just saw them yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've lived for over the course of our friendship, Callie and I have lived apart longer than we ever lived in the same city.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
but it just makes you that much more, I think, appreciative that the friendship has lasted.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I think you hold that person in a kind of a different tier of
Mhm.
friendship, right?
For
Mhm.
sure.
Um, and I think that there's also that idea that you can pick up where you left off, but more importantly, there's never any hurt feelings between the two of you
Exactly.
because you haven't
Right?
Yeah.
been in touch so closely or something like
Exactly. You
that.
you never hold that against them. It's
No,
Exactly.
just like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm so glad, so
Yeah.
good
for
to talk
sure.
to you."
Yeah.
You're not thinking or like that's a really good point. Because women friendships can be complex. And so
Hmm.
what do you think that you found in the past have been a complexity that maybe has gotten in the way of your female friendship or maybe a friendship that's gone awry? I mean, have you ever had friendships that have just gone by the wayside, or maybe it's been, kind of like a breakup. Maybe it's a bad breakup with a friend.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
friendship breakups are terrible.
I think that'd be really hard.
I mean, I've definitely gone through a few friendship breakups, and I think the complexities of female friendships are hard. And I don't think a lot of men necessarily understand this, because men are, like, not saying that men are simple creatures, but
Mhm.
sometimes they can be, in the sense of their friendships, where, you know, it's like, oh, well, you like golf? Well, I like golf.
Yes, we're
Okay, we're
friends. We're
friends.
friends. Uh-huh.
And I
Right.
think, as women, I don't know if you guys agree, but I think that women can be very judgmental.
Hmm.
We're very untrusting of others.
Hmm.
We all, for some reason, I feel like a lot of us think that other people are out to get us,
Hmm.
when maybe they're not. And I
Hmm.
think that kind of ties into when you are building new friendships, or even with old friendships, that maybe you don't necessarily have that trust there,
Yeah.
Hmm.
where it can be really complex, in the sense of, you almost develop this storyline of, oh, well, they're talking to me, or they're talking about me to this person, or,
They're gossiping. Hmm.
gossiping. And when maybe at the end of the day, they're actually not,
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I'll put that on myself, because I definitely,
Hmm.
there's been some friendships that have maybe gone AWire because I've thought that, and then vice versa,
Hmm.
friendships that on their end, they
Hmm.
Yeah.
also thought the same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that in the article that we will link up to, that's kind of the base piece for this conversation from, what is it, Psychology Today.
Right. And
She talks about how
well, I will interject. So keep your thoughts. So the article that we're referring to there, to our foundational piece, it is from Psychology Today, and it is an interview. So it's about a book that was just written by Danielle Bayer Jackson, and so she's the author of Fighting for Our Friendships: The Science and Art of Conflict and Connection in Women's Relationships. And so she does take that big deep dive. This article really it's just a snippet of their interview. Anyway, I'm going to hand that back to you, but I haven't read this book, but I definitely am going to go and read this book because
Yeah, it sounds really
it's so
interesting.
complex. It can be very complex,
Yeah.
women's relationships.
Yeah, and so she points to one of the complexities being a need for intimacy
Mm-hmm.
on a different level. Like this is one of the many reasons that she gives for why female friendships are different than male friendships, and it's because in her research she found that women are seeking out a different type of intimacy in their female friendships than men are necessarily, or even that women are with their male friends.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think it kind of goes like you can say the women are from what is it, Venus, and
Uh-huh.
men are
Men
from
from
Mars.
Mars. Uh-huh.
But even going deeper than that, just kind of understanding that like this, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like the way that we kind of set ourselves up to frame how we're going to create a relationship is like
Mm-hmm.
completely different than maybe a male
Mm-hmm.
would. Without even knowing that we're doing that, I think. And that's part of what makes it
Mhm.
seem so complex is because
Mm-hmm.
we don't even realize that we're doing it. And so it just creates these layers of friendship
Mm-hmm.
or levels to the friendship that are just completely like maybe natural to us when we go out and try to build a friendship with someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We almost make it more complicated than it
Mm-hmm.
needs to
That it
be
can be, right?
sometimes.
so yeah, well,
You
because I
know?
think I think there is that um and we'll probably go into this a little bit more when we get into how mean women can be to each other and why is that if we're all seeking out these beautiful intimate loving relationships, like
Mm-hmm.
why are we so mean to each other?
That's right.
But I think that there is something inherent within us that makes us, like you were saying, Chelsea, less trustworthy, kind of needing to uh, for someone that kind of needs to prove themselves to us before we can like
Mhm.
fully commit to like a
Mm-hmm.
friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And that can go through several, time is not only the only thing, but it can go through several iterations, I think, before we actually feel like,
Yeah.
okay, this person has proven their worth to me and now we can
Right.
be
Well,
friends.
yeah. Well,
Yes.
even like I just recently went to lunch with a group of women from the golf club that we're members at. And I mean, we had a great lunch, and, everyone that I went to lunch with was
Mhm.
great. But I mean, even sitting there, I'm thinking back, I went home that night, and in my head, I'm thinking, why did I say that? Or why did I say, and then you're in your head thinking that they're judging you for saying something when they probably
Mhm.
don't even remember
Right.
Right.
what you said.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we as women get very in our head about things
Mhm.
like that. And
Mhm.
it does, I mean, even more in my head than, when I'm talking with Andrew, I can just say whatever I want to say because I
Mhm.
mean, he's my husband and
Right.
obviously he loves me and he's,
Right.
you know,
Yes.
Yeah. There's the whole,
You have that built-in trust system.
yeah.
yeah,
And I think it comes down to like fear of judgment. And we talked
fear of
about this a
judgment.
lot in
Yeah.
our bathing suit, in our beach body
Yes.
episode too. Like it's not just a physical level of judgment that we're afraid of. I think it's, we're afraid that we're being judged for
Yes.
saying stupid things or
Yes.
having a wrong opinion or, things like this.
And
So,
there's a whole term out there now. It's called Karen. I mean, that whole thought process of being judged, and we have a term for it in society and on social media. It's like don't be a Karen, which is you're going out there and you're judging and being the policeman of the universe, and specifically the policeman of some other woman's life.
yeah, I think that whole
Hmm.
Karen phenomenon in women like
Mm-hmm.
a Karen
Mm-hmm.
are like just the born out like reality of
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
how we already feel about being judged, right? Or
That's
just knowing
right.
that these women are out there being
Yes.
judgy of
Right.
everybody
Because
and
there is, unfortunately, and so I'm going to go back to this book that I haven't read, but I'm going to, but just the interview. So the author Danielle Bayer Jackson, so she was a high school teacher, and it was her observations of boys and girls at that time, how they congregate and
Mhm.
how they react to certain situations. Really had her start to think about how we bond and how we solve problems in a much different way,
Mhm.
because I don't think that there's so we have the Karens of the world, but is there a male counterpart? Because I don't think men are out there.
Well, there's like the Chad and the Brads.
Well,
I
there's a
think
chat,
that would
but isn't that but
be, that's more of like your bros, I guess.
right? But they're not being judgy, are
No,
they?
no. If any, thing, people are judging them.
Right, they're judging the Chads and the Brads.
But yeah, I mean,
But I think I mean, I don't know if this is hmm, I don't even know how to approach what I'm about to say, but in our last podcast, which was about trad wives,
Mhm.
um, I think that feminism tied into that podcast a little bit. We
Mhm.
touched on it slightly, but I think that there is this fundamental. Um, I think there's just this fundamental difference between men and women where I do think that and I don't know if men are going around being judgy like Karens are, but they certainly aren't doing it in the way that Karens do it.
Mhm.
Right. So I think that there's a lot less to make fun of now that we've kind of addressed this whole persona and
Mhm.
like what are the defining
Uh-huh.
characteristics of a Karen or
Right.
whatever.
Well, I
But
define a Karen as just being so judgy
yeah, I
and
mean
just coming over and yes,
that's
and
pretty much what it
yeah.
is. But like I think the idea that there's just a fundamental difference in how men and women approach friendships. Like, I don't think that men would take it so hard if they
Mhm.
felt like they were being judged.
Mhm.
Whereas I think women take it
right.
to a
Right.
as a personal attack on a
It's an
level
attack.
Right.
that's, you know, just
Yes.
kind of
Well,
shattering in a way that men just don't respond to that
Yeah.
sort of thing in the
Where that
same way.
they take the ribbing or the teasing, or they take just one man pointing something else out like
they just laugh it
yeah,
off.
they just laugh it off and
Yeah.
let it roll off
Well,
there,
what's funny is
which
I
is
think
what that book talks about. Is that's conflict. How men, how they deal with conflict, and how women deal with conflict.
Yes. And how women have the just
Hmm.
a way more emotional kind of
Yes.
level of
right.
response to
Well, and
Uh-huh.
I think
femininity.
so coming from my dance teaching background, I saw this in little kids a lot too. And little girls, they can be so mean. And I'm like,
Yes,
where
we
does
can
this,
be. We can be very
but
mean, unfortunately.
I think a lot of how we are as women
Mhm.
stems back to how I don't know why little kids can be this way or
Mhm.
specifically girls, but I would see it in my dance classes all the time where, they would be talking about one of the other little kids in the room, or you would catch
Mhm.
them whispering in the corner.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, why are we doing that?
Mhm.
Where are you learning that from?
Right.
Yeah.
Are we learning this at home? Are we learning this at school? Because then it's that type of
Mhm.
um, actions and attitude and how they perceive
Mhm.
friendships and gossip and being judgmental
Mhm.
that then later on in our lives is why we all have trust issues
Right.
with other women and probably why all three of us sit here and say, oh, well, we have a handful
We have
of
a
close
handful of that's
friends,
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, it's funny you point to a really interesting point. Um, I think I can remember in junior high school this very specifically, like wanting so desperately to be part of the
hmm
or to be not with the popular kids because I knew I was never going to be part of that group, but I had fallen in with a group of girls that I so desperately wanted to be thought of as a part of that group. And it
hmm
was almost as if I had to go through an initiation process,
hmm
not
Mhm.
literally,
Mhm.
but I felt like it took me weeks and weeks and weeks of like trying to hang out
hmm
with them but the whole time I always felt like there was one girl in the group who didn't want me to be a part of the group. And
Right.
so she
Right.
would kind of snicker to the other ones,
Mhm.
and then before I knew it, I was ejected from the group.
Mhm.
hmm
And it was devastating at the time. I felt so terrible and it really hurt my feelings. I was
hmm
new in town. I had just moved there. Um, but there's this kind of and I bet this is what you saw in your dance classes when with the littler kids. There's this kind of need to be accepted
hmm
by any means possible and not even really knowing at that age like what that means. But I think it accounts for like some of this meanness. Like you're on my team, right? Like let's make sure that that girl's not part of our team.
hmm
That kind of thing. Like it's
Right.
a very weird and I don't exactly know where it comes from other than just wondering
There is an
aloud
interesting
if there's this
dynamic of exclusivity, and
hmm
that you're not
right,
part
But
of
right.
it's
our
definitely that has to be a
group.
learned
Mhm.
behavior. I mean, I don't think that we're born to just not trust other people and just to be, well, we're going to exclude you.
Mhm.
Like, you're not allowed to be on our, you know,
Mm-hmm.
on our
Yeah,
team.
I'm not sure. I'm
Well,
not
does
sure
the
where
movie
that.
Mean Girls um, touch on this? I mean, isn't it that the one new girl has to be vetted out by
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's like a
yeah.
whole
there's
process.
a whole process and
And then she becomes the
uh
the most popular girl.
right,
Yeah. But
but
but they're all mean to each other.
but
They're all
well, right,
terrible.
hence Mean Girls. Yeah, so there is a very interesting thing, and I do think that boys and men are by nature more inclusive.
Mm.
I don't think that they need to, and maybe I don't know.
Well, I
It's
think
a very complex, but I look back at men, and not that they're not competitive, they are competitive, but I think they use that competitiveness to make themselves better, not to be exclusive. Whereas we sometimes take our competitiveness to different
Mhm.
levels.
yeah. Yeah, I also think that we just have such an emotional attachment to it too that
Hmm.
that makes it different.
Hmm.
Because I definitely know that, like, I mean, bullying between boys and men is a thing.
Hmm.
There are definite like bullies in the workplace that are men on
Mhm.
Yes.
men for sure.
Yes.
But I don't necessarily know if like m- the male need to be an accepted part of a group is as fierce as it is
Hmm.
in
For
women.
women.
Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yes, that's
Um,
what I'm saying. And so I mean, I do know that bullying is definitely real.
yeah.
Mhm.
However, when you look at and maybe it has to do with just, how we're socialized and things are changing. I mean, women are in sports now. So, but when I look back to when I was in high school, we didn't have as many opportunities to be on sports teams or have that
Mhm.
collective experience together of working together, being on the
Mhm.
same team and the same goal. Whereas boys always had that built in because they're on the football team. And I'm talking definitely United States, football team, baseball team,
Mhm.
even track. You may have been on, competing in a single event, but then you'd have, the relay race, so it was a lot more communal and more of a communal goal,
Mhm.
whereas we didn't have those opportunities.
Mhm.
But I mean, definitely things have changed,
Right.
definitely, which is, a good thing because I think when you are inclusive like that, like on a team and you're thrown into that situation, then you have to learn to work together. Whereas like, and then I'm just kind of like even thinking about your dance group or the dance classes that you taught because dance is still yes you have like the ballet core but yet there's the one woman that gets to be the principal dancer or a
Mhm.
so then that's when things get a little bit more
Right.
I don't know. I mean, this is just really truly just off the top of my head, but there again going back to the book that we're referring to, she really did notice these very drastic differences between
Mhm.
how boys, how they collectively, become friends, how they deal with conflict, and it's much different than girls.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting though that she also points out that women seem or that she found that women were very conflict avoidant,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that's so funny because it seems to me like a lot of women actually create the conflict in their
They're
relationships.
conflict avoidant in the sense that they
Direct,
gossip.
direct conflict. We don't
It's
like
yeah.
direct conflicts.
I know,
I
but
wish
that's it's such a weird
it
dichotomy, like
is.
as
Well,
far
and I
as
think that's and Noelle's always said this about me,
Mhm.
but if we have ever had a problem, I am a very much direct contact t- type of
Mhm.
person. I will come to you, I will
Mhm.
tell you that there's a problem.
That's right.
I will um but I think that also hinders me in some of my female relationships because
Yes.
I don't think other women sometimes appreciate that
oh
Exactly.
yeah,
because
Exactly.
they're more beat around the bush.
Exactly. And they'll go, and then that's where we will have the gossip, or
Yeah.
mhm,
and we were kind of touching on this before we started the podcast. Is when like we talk to our husbands, they're very direct and they want to solve the problem. Whereas
Mhm.
sometimes we just want to talk about the problem.
Right.
yeah,
We need to process it in a much different way. And that's why girlfriends are so nice to
right,
have because they will allow us to process something without jumping in to save the day or,
right,
solve
For
our
sure.
problem. So I do
mhm,
think that so I will go back to the importance of having female friends, but I do know that in the past when I've had friendships go awry because I've grown up in a world of men. I had two brothers. I had 3 sons. I am very direct, and I typically solve things that way. But I have found in the past that women, we do process things differently, and that has not always been the best solution. And I've seen my friendships kind of disintegrate because I was direct and they were not.
Mhm.
And so then we just kind of had a parting of ways. So, and also too, because this article talks about gossip, that it's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a bad thing because, and I liked how she pointed out, okay, because we do need to process
Mm-hmm.
our thoughts, and we were just talking about that. And our husbands, men do it much differently than girlfriends. So when we are bearing our souls, so maybe maybe it's about our spouse or relationship, or maybe just a problem that we're having. I like the distinction about gossip is, are you talking about or against?
Right.
And I think, if we can,
Mhm.
draw that line, that delineation, then, so then sometimes we think that women's gossip is always
Negative.
negative,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but it's not always.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's something that we as women, we need to talk about a little bit more,
Yeah.
and be a little bit more open and transparent, in our need for being indirect, I
Yeah.
guess,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because that really is an
There's a
indirect
fine
way,
line.
of solving a problem.
Mhm.
So,
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And she points out about like kind of getting a lay of the land of your social surroundings.
uh
Gossip helps, good gossip, like
good gossip.
about gossip
Hmm.
helps you
Mhm.
kind of establish um just kind of the lay of the land when it comes to your
Yeah.
social circle and the people that you talk to. Like I think for the most part, like I definitely gossip, especially like with my mom and my sister.
Hmm.
And Callie and I will gossip too. And I
Hmm.
can never remember ever like it really doesn't stick out to me that we've ever had a gossip session that was mean-spirited about somebody.
Right.
In fact, it's more like it would probably classically be called gossip, but it feels more like we're catching up
Right.
about
Yeah.
someone or
Right.
About
something.
someone.
Right.
Yeah.
I love gossip. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
It's the Virgo in me.
I
If Noelle comes to me and she says, "I have tea for you," I'm like,
bring it,
"Spill
bring it. I
spill
know.
the tea."
Yes. I I actually like gossip too, if it's not mean spirited, if it's
Yeah.
not against somebody. And I just think,
Yeah.
back to the days, working and being in the
Mhm.
workplace and
Oh
being
yeah.
around the water cooler. And sometimes, sometimes you bond with people over your hatred over your
Oh
boss.
yeah.
Oh,
Which I
For
that's
don't,
sure.
which I think you could talk shit about your boss all day long, and
Yeah.
that's not really against them. It's just,
yeah.
it's just part of the world.
Venting, yeah.
But you just need,
Just
but you would bond. It's like, yes, he did this, or he's doing that, or she's doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was, the two of you or the three of you against, this one, the
Yeah.
the giant in the land that was, that
yeah.
seemingly was against you. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah. So
Well, you bring up another good point about friendships in general, but female friendships in particular. Like if there's one thing that I miss about working in an office is that I
I know,
did
right?
have a cadre of
Yes.
female,
Oh yeah.
friends.
You always had your work friends, and you'd go out for
Yeah.
drinks
And you bond
afterwards. And
because the
Mhm.
work is so hard and you're like
Yeah.
in the trenches with them. You
Yeah.
bond over
Mhm.
mutual hatreds and
Yes.
nitpicks.
Yes.
But then you go and you have lunch together. So you have this like beautiful
Mhm.
social
Yeah.
world and sphere
Mhm.
that exists at the office.
Mhm.
And sometimes you get together outside of work, like for
Yep.
drinks after work or something like that.
Aw.
But I did have like two really good female work friends that we would
Mhm.
actually hang out outside of work pretty frequently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I do miss that the kind of disintegration of that relationship when I quit working there and moved away.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but it also goes to show like to maintain that level of friendship would have taken a lot of work on all of our parts, not only because of the distance, but because we didn't have work in common
Yeah, you
anymore.
don't have that
Because you don't have
commonality. So
Yeah.
yes, and I
Yeah.
do think that there's
100%.
there's a
Yeah.
big difference between your work friends, or like
Mhm.
when you have children, or if you have children, then the friends that you make at school,
Oh
the other
yeah.
parents.
The
I mean,
parents.
yes, there are
Yeah.
different things that you slot in. But I
Mhm.
guess that's also a good distinction for us to be making, and
Mhm.
why our inner circle of friends is different than just the people that you would meet at work, or
Mhm.
at PTA, or or whatever it is. But
You bond over a
mhm,
broader aspect of things with your
mhm,
best friend
and a
rather.
deeper,
Yeah,
on a deeper
deeper.
level too. Yes,
Mhm.
and then
For
we
sure.
do know that we can trust them. But So, are there things, so both of you are married now and you all have spouses? And I just remember, when, and as I earlier brought up, just like with my mom, or I could even saw it in, dear friends of mine, they would come over, we would just be yakety yak, yak,
Mhm.
yakking. The Mac would be like,
Yeah.
what the, now, what the heck are you talking about? Nothing, everything.
Yeah.
So, what do your female friends provide that your spouse doesn't? Because and I will just interject this too, it was just so fun just to have those conversations that would just go down rabbit holes and
Mhm.
loop around, and it wasn't linear, and we weren't solving any problems. I absolutely love that with my female friends.
Yeah.
So that's what they gave me. That, I mean, even though, I mean, Mac knew my deepest, darkest secrets and was always there. I mean, on such an intimate level. But I do love. It was just, I guess, more of a, it was a deep relationship with my girlfriends, but also this kind of fun, frivolous aspect to it too
Yeah.
that I really like.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
what do your female friends offer that your spouse doesn't?
Well, I mean, some of those same things that you just listed out, as far as like fun and frivolous,
Mhm.
and just one thing leading to another.
Uh-huh.
I really like having years long history with Callie in
Hmm.
particular. We have a lot of shared memories and a lot of things that we can talk about that lead us into other conversations. But
Hmm.
I think I think being in relationships, her partner just died. So
Hmm.
that's been difficult. But for the most part, all of our time together, we've both been in relationships and with different people. And I always really appreciate having her to talk to about my husband or
Hmm.
boyfriend or partner at the time.
Hmm.
Like, I think it's really important to be able to talk about your relationship with someone other than the person you're in the relationship with.
Right.
Just like Alex hears about any time, like I'm having, not that I have issues with Callie, but there are some there have been a lot of things lately in the past few years where I've been really worried
Hmm.
about her and life and things. And Alex hears all about that. So it's good to have, for him to have the knowledge of her as my best friend, that he can kind of help out with those kinds of conversations. Just like it's really great for her to be there for me to have conversations about him.
It is.
Hmm.
And
Because
it's not even him. It's not even him personally too. It's
no,
just relationship, like
yes,
in
it's,
general
and
too.
I think
I
it's
mean, it's
really,
both.
that's what I love about friendships and being married too, is you will have an outside perspective that
Yeah.
you need sometimes. You
Absolutely.
need to, step away from
Yeah.
what that issue is that's bothering you about your spouse or your friend, or whatever it
Yeah.
is in your life. But it's interesting because I don't necessarily think that, like, me going to my mom or a friend, like, oh, Mac did this, or
Mm-hmm.
or the boys did this. I never really felt like that was gossip about them, or
Right.
against them, I should say.
Yeah.
It's just
Hmm.
about them,
Yeah.
and gaining an outside
Yeah.
perspective, which I do
Hmm.
think is important. And that's why I'm saying we are a communal beings. We need each other. We need that interaction. We need,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we can't just always be in our own heads. You
Well, and
know,
it's really nice to
it's
have,
good to get it out and
yeah,
share it with somebody.
Hmm.
and to get confirmation from someone, whether it's confirming that you're being a little bit too
Yeah,
uptight or they're confirming that
right.
you're in the right. If there's, because
That's right.
perfect
Hmm.
example, and this having raised three boys, sometimes I could just get together with Callie and I'm like, boys are so gross.
Mhm.
Like, why do they
Yeah.
have to pee on the toilet seat,
Yeah.
or why do they have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why do they have to leave their stubble in the sink?
Why
Like,
are
why
they
can't you just rinse out the
farting
sink?
all the
Oh
time?
Why
my
do they
gosh.
fart and burp and do all their
Why do you fart
gross,
burp a
gross
lot?
man things, So so it's really nice to be able to, I mean, you can talk about those kinds of things with
Yeah,
any woman that you're hanging out with, and you're going to have fun laughing,
I know it is. Yeah.
but it is really nice to just have that one person that you
Yes.
do,
for sure.
Yes.
have
Yeah.
that intimacy with, to
Uh-huh.
talk about those finer points in life, like
Yeah.
peeing on toilet seat.
Yeah. So, Chelsea, how do you like to maintain your friendships?
Well,
Or have you found that it's changed throughout the years?
it's definitely changed throughout the years. I feel like, when I was in my 20s and like into my late 20s and even early 30s, before I met Andrew,
Hmm.
it was probably a lot easier to get together with girlfriends because,
Hmm.
I was single, and
Hmm.
it was way easier to pin down a dinner date or, oh, like, let's go have dinner, let's go have drinks. We're going to go out on a Friday night or we'll go out on a Saturday night or I'm going to meet up with you. Whereas now I feel like it's a little bit different just because, I mean, I do have a spouse and
Mhm.
obviously me and Andrew are married and
Mhm.
I can't just go out every single night and
Right.
grab a drink with a
Right.
friend because at the end of the day, I mean, Andrew's going to be like, do you want to hang out with me?
Right. Well, your priorities change.
Yeah. So,
As you get older, and then also when you're married and then not married, because I mean, now my life has changed back to not being married. I'm a widow. And so friendships are definitely much more, well, I mean, they've always been important, but there I'm back to that.
Front and center.
Yes.
Yeah.
front and center. Yeah.
Whereas my female friendships are so very, very important to me. And so one thing, before I wrap this up, because then we're going to go into our or my favorite section, new and noteworthy.
Mhm.
So, but I'm just going to wrap it up just by, and I shared this at the very beginning, but I will encourage you to always go out and cultivate new friends. Be on the lookout because sometimes when we reach out to people, I mean, we could be reaching out to somebody that desperately needs a
Mhm.
friend, just
Mhm.
like we know that we desperately need friends too. And
Yeah.
it really is a community, and it's just something that you don't age out of. And it's something that we do need to be thoughtful and cognizant of as we
Mhm.
age, because it's just something that it's like any relationship, it's evergreen, it's ongoing. We need friends, we need community. So don't ever quit making friends out there.
Good advice.
Okay. So we're going to wrap it up. We're going to take a quick break. And as I said, we'll be back with new and noteworthy. And we're back with my favorite segment, new and noteworthy. And we just had this lovely podcast about female friendships. But
Mhm.
one aspect that I absolutely love about female friendships are we're always sharing things with each other.
Mhm.
That's just it's just an important aspect of female friendship. So I always look forward to your new or noteworthy, or maybe they're both,
Mhm.
um, pieces every week. So Chelsea, I'll kick it off to you this week. So what do you have for us this week on deck?
My new is actually a reformer machine that I just got.
Wow.
And I haven't actually used it yet, but I did put it together yesterday
Uh-huh.
and kind of tested it out a little bit. And I
Mhm.
mean, it works.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it'll be good enough for what I'm using it for. But I recently took a reformer machine class. So I teach Pure Bar once a week.
Mhm.
And I love Pure Bar. And I mean, I'm still going to do Pure Bar, obviously, but that's more, I guess you would say mat Pilates
Mhm.
style, which I do love. But I took a reformer machine class
Mhm.
and I was so sore
Mhm.
in my core and my upper
Uh,
back, which I never get sore in my
mhm.
upper back. So I got on this whole reformer machine kick, and then there was a sale at Walmart and I got it for 450 and I was like, "You know what? That's like 2 months membership at a
Yeah.
reformer Pilates
Uh-huh.
class."
It's
So I
true.
bought it.
Wow. So how are you going
And
to
here
take
we are.
do you know enough to be able to do a class on your own, or
Well,
do you have like a
so I found
online class?
so there's this one girl that I found and it's like holistic Pilates
Mhm.
something holistic Pilates, but she has a YouTube and she
Oh,
actually has different classes on the reformer
nice.
machine that she does
Uh-huh.
with exercises.
Mhm.
So I think I'm just going to follow along with that.
Yeah.
She has like little 20-minute ones or 30-minute ones, which will
Uh-huh.
be great because then I can do that and also still do Pure Bar.
Mhm.
Nice. Well,
So
I'm a
yeah.
big fan of Pilates because I actually go off
Yeah.
4 times a week, and I can't even tell you how many comments I get from women these days. Like, Beth, share your exercise program. Your legs
Mhm.
are toned, or this or that. And I'm like, I have it all to owe to Pilates
I
and the
know.
reformer machine. And you work
You work well.
every muscle. And I'm telling you, we do things sometimes that I don't think that I can do. I mean, it's like a sense of accomplishment because it's like, okay, I'm gonna try it. I'm
Mhm.
gonna, maybe it won't look so pretty, but at least I'm
It
gonna
is
try it.
not
Gets you out of your head, and oh boy, does
It's
it.
not easy, and I'll say
Mm-mm.
the name of this because I don't think I said it,
No.
and we'll link it too, but it's the Aero Pilates Premier 700 foldable reformer machine with
Wow.
cardio rebounder. So that's the
Wow.
tongue twister in
Wow.
itself.
It's a
Yes, it
big
is. But
deal.
you got that at Walmart.
but I think Amazon sells it too, but yes, I got it at Walmart.
Well, nice.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Really cool.
Yeah. Okay, Kelly, what do you have on deck this week?
Okay, so I just watched Jim Henson, Idea Man. It's a new documentary by Ron Howard.
I love Ron Howard.
It's on Disney Plus. So this we're filming this and this just came out a couple days ago. And this episode isn't airing until somewhere around July 27th. Today's July 13th.
Mhm.
So it's out there, everyone. If you have Disney Plus, even if you don't have Disney Plus, maybe get a free trial and just watch this movie
I think
because
if you have Hulu, you have Disney Plus now
I think it depends
on your package.
yeah, on your
Okay.
package.
Sorry.
Mhm.
But basically, so one of the things that I mean, I grew up with the Muppet Show. I've
Mhm.
always loved Muppets. Love Jim Henson, all of his movies, everything. So this documentary is more of a deep dive into his early life.
Mhm.
Actually, his early life insofar as college, after college, his marriage, his family, and all of that. It focuses very little at the very end on like the Dark Crystal and some of it Labyrinth and
Mhm.
stuff like that.
Mhm.
So what I found so fascinating about this was that I did not know. I mean, I knew he was a really smart guy who had this amazing idea and invented Muppets, but he was a very subversive filmmaker. Like he was very into experimental filmmaking and actually filmed a lot of their sessions and idea brainstorming stuff. So there's all this really great behind the scenes footage that Ron Howard has put
Mhm.
into this documentary, and so it really feels truly
Uh-huh.
like a documentary. Like
Mhm.
everything is documented,
Mhm.
and it's just they've got drawings that he did and sketches of I mean, it's such a great
Mhm.
documentary. And so if you have a nostalgia for Muppets, or if you just really love the idea of all of that and you
Mhm.
love them, it's a really fascinating film.
It sounds interesting. So is it like just 2-hour documentary or is it an ongoing
No, it's
thing?
it's just a movie.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
so just a
Um
movie. Okay.
and
So
it's
that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember the running time.
Mhm.
But it's worth every minute. It's fantastic, very inspiring.
Nice. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, I have a product to share today, and because it has been a very hot summer in Georgia this year, really hot. And if I want to spend any time outside in the evening, I am bringing out a Shark cordless misting fan.
Mhm.
So I love it because it's a portable fan. You just, I mean, and it's outdoor. I mean, it's really made for the outdoor. And it does come with a cord, but then you can charge it up and then take it outside. But it
Mhm.
has this little misting apparatus that you can attach to it as well.
Nice.
So if I want to spend any time at all, as I said, outside, and I do like to spend
Yeah.
time outside, I do. I think it's really important. I just bring this fan along, and boy, it makes a big difference. And also, what I liked about it, it's called the Shark Flex Breeze Outdoor Indoor Fan with Insta Cooling Mist, and you can it's like a little pedestal stand
Mhm.
or fan, so it's not like it's maybe like 3 feet tall, but you can actually take the top off and put it on a table.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
Nice.
So if you're having a dinner party or something like that,
Mhm.
you could keep it on the pedestal or just take the top off. And then I was actually thinking of buying another one, so if I mean, we haven't eaten outside for a little bit, but thinking, down the road, maybe this fall, but it's still a little bit warm, getting one for each end of the table. So
That's
I may
nice.
go invest in
Cross
another one.
cross
Mhm.
breeze.
Yeah, but it's quiet and it really does its job. And
So where did you find it?
so they have it on Amazon, of course. They
Mhm.
actually have it at Walmart and, QVC, all the
Okay.
Mhm.
places. But it's a Shark. So I mean, Sharks are sold. Probably you could probably get it at Best Buy too, I'm
Mhm.
guessing. Anyway,
Cool.
yep. So that's my amazing summer product, the cooling misting fan.
Nice.
Okay, ladies. Well, that wraps it up for another edition of Message from Mom, where we're busting the myth that mothers in law aren't necessarily monsters in law.